It's Des Bryant by far. Bryant is the sort of receiver who he hits vertical passes, he hits short passes, he hits intermediate passes, he beats any level of competition you throw at him. You need to beat his zone, he'll beat that. I mean, he does everything. There aren't many receivers who can do that. There are a couple, 3, 4 in the league, and you can find players to do specific things of what he does, like Terrence Williams can hit the vertical passes, some of what Bryant did there, and you can get guys who can do some of the dink and dunk stuff, and you can hodgepodge together what he did, but you can't replicate it quite to the same extent. You can't quite do everything. So that hamstrings their offense more than any other loss they could have had, I think, including maybe the Romo.
All right, let's take a look at the advantage. Where do you look at Philadelphia and say, look, they've got an advantage, this is where they can attack, and this is how they can beat Dallas?
Pace. Right now, Dallas would like to have a running game where they can just pound the football and play their sort of grinded-out game. I don't know that they can quite do that, especially since they don't have Bryant there. And Philadelphia, even though against Atlanta they were using pace with passing, they can still run their pace game. And if Philadelphia is running the game at its pace, we saw what happened in the second half against Atlanta. The Falcons were wore out by the time that game ended, and I think the same thing could happen to an injury-depleted Cowboys defense. All
right, on the other side of the things, Dallas, I know they are injury-depleted. They lost Des Bryant. What still worries you if you're Philadelphia?
That I have Byron Maxwell in coverage.
Oh, boy.
And that Maxwell was beaten on stretch vertical passes more than any other quarterback in the league last week. Now, okay, it's Julio Jones. Mind you, he's like Bryant. He can do everything, and there's almost nobody in the league who could stop him entirely. But when you've got a guy who gives it that many vertical passes, that many stretch vertical passes, I should say, and those are passes throwing 20 more yards, you're talking the big throws. You get a guy who's getting up that many big throws. Terrence Williams had some great metrics on those passes in college and early in his pro days, so they're going to test him and see if Terrence Williams still has those chops right now.
I want to get your thoughts on that offensive line. We hear so much about them, Dallas, the offensive line. Are they as advertised, or is this a offensive line that you can rush the passer on? Because I didn't see much from New York. Not to mention, I didn't see much from Philly getting to Matt Ryan the other night.
They hit Ryan. They got hits on Ryan. That's they didn't get a lot of big pass rush. But then again, Ryan was throwing a lot of dink and dunk passes too. So it is troubling when you talk about the Cowboys. But they allowed 4 quarterback hits to Romo last week, so you can get after them. It's just a matter of can you force them to take the long passes, because they're going to dink and dunk like Atlanta did. Nobody's going to get a pass rush on those throws. But the thing about their run blocking too is, as good as the Cowboys are, last year they were above average, but not run blocking because teams knew they had to stop the run. It's just they can keep grinding at you for 4 quarters, and their offensive line can be just as effective in the fourth quarter as it can in the first quarter. So it's a matter of that. Again, that's that pace thing. Can Philly keep their pace going so Dallas can't wear their defense down? Casey
Joyner is with us here, ESPN.com, NFL Insider, Eagles and Cowboys. Sam Bradford, tale of two halves for him. He did his best to bring them back in the second half. He struggled in the first half. Which Bradford do you anticipate in the game against the Cowboys?
The second half, Bradford, and actually I'm not nearly as worried about Bradford as I am other parts of the Eagles team. In the first half, there were miscommunications, and the offensive line was having a few problems with communication issues and with receivers. There were those issues. Those are correctable. Those are mental errors. They're easy to correct. In the second half, he wasn't getting hit. He was throwing a lot of dink and dunk passes, and we've been asking for a couple years now at Chip Kelly, if the Eagles had to play a fast-paced passing game, if they had to switch to something else, can they do that? And you'd say, boy, if they're going to do a fast-paced passing game with Foles or Sanchez under center, you're like, well, I don't know if I really want that. I don't know if I trust that. With Bradford, he showed them Monday night. If they fall behind and they get to play fast-paced passing to catch up, they'll be just fine.
All right. I think Murray is another guy I want to talk about. Yesterday Chip Kelly said the guards played well. He said it's tough to judge them because they didn't run the ball that much. To say that they didn't block well on the run's not fair because they didn't really run that much. Did they not run because the guards got blown up, or did they not run well because they didn't run the ball that much?
When you fall behind 17-3 at halftime, you're not going to run the ball very much. So that was a big part of it. Here's the thing, though. I've got that metric called good blocking yards per attempt. It measures how productive a ball carrier is when you give them good blocking. Eagles, 8.4 yards in that game. 8.5 is the league average. So it's not a great game. You expect more from their offensive line. It wasn't nearly as bad as people thought it was. I mean, they need their running, but even they had a 44% good blocking rate, which is above league averages. when they did run the ball overall, they were doing pretty well at it. It's just that they got in game situations that said, we don't want to run this fast-paced running game because if it doesn't work, we're down 17-3 and this thing's going to get worse. All
right, I'll get your thoughts on that game in just a moment here. Let's go to a couple of other interesting ones, including New England taking on Buffalo. Give me the way you're leaning and why in that one.
The way I'm leaning would be towards New England. Buffalo, hey, look, they got a nice win last week, but it's Tyrod Taylor versus Tom Brady. I think when you've got that disparity in talent in quarterbacks, it's a huge factor. And last week, the thing about the Colts are not. The Colts have a lot of weaknesses. They don't run the ball well. They don't stop the run well. There's a lot of things they don't do well, and you can take advantage of that. The Patriots don't have those weaknesses, and I just think that everybody's thinking that Buffalo is going to beat them because of what happened last week with Indianapolis, and I think it's going to be entirely different. New England wins this game. I won't say handily, but wouldn't be surprised at 10 points.
Interesting. That's a very interesting early division matchup as well. Another game that I think is interesting is Cincinnati and San Diego. Both teams look pretty good. I thought Cincinnati, they beat Oakland, but they're not usually a good road team. I thought they made a pretty nice statement in that first game. Cincinnati and San Diego played very well last week too.
Yeah, the thing about San Diego that they got to be worried about going into this game is they gave up a 57.1% good blocking rate to Detroit. 35% is league average there, so about 22 points worse than league average in good blocking rate. Detroit was able to run the ball very effectively, is what I'm trying to get at. And you're going up against Cincinnati and that running game, and they've got two backs they can keep pounding at you with, and an offensive line that's pretty darn good. I mean, it's something that if San Diego doesn't get that fixed, I think Cincinnati's going to run the ball on them all game long, and I think it could be one of those where the team out in the second half and be a pretty big victory for the Bengals.
All right, Giants at home. Falcons look pretty. They look much improved. I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl contender all of a sudden. Giants got robbed. The NFL said, "Hey, 2 calls. We blew 2 calls." So Giants at home. They bounce back against the Falcons.
Yeah, I think they do. The Giants, they've got some problems in the secondary, but if the Falcons want to go pace with the Giants are going to pass first down right off the beginning of the game. And I think the Giants, they're going to get more into sync than they were last week. We're going to start seeing more of Odell Beckham Jr. and Eli Manning we saw late last year in this game because I still am not a believer in that Falcons secondary.
All right, how about Foles going to Washington? You got St. Louis with that big win. They have a letdown this week?
No, because Washington's got an injury, or they've got a suspension in their already really bad secondary, and I think they're going to give some big plays there. And if St. Louis brings in Gurley, now you've got a 1-2, maybe a 1-2-3 punch in their backfield, and I think Washington's defense is too big of a problem for them to overcome.
All right, last one is Seahawks and Green Bay, another big one there, and obviously everybody looking at Seattle's defense and wondering, is it over? Is that the end of the Seahawk dynasty in that defense?
Green Bay, I've been talking about good blocking rate in our interview here, and Green Bay had a 63% good blocking rate against Chicago. That's almost twice the league average. I mean, it's an incredibly good number. Now, Seattle's not going to give up 63% good blocking rate, but Seattle has struggled against the power run the past couple of years. They don't have Chancellor to go stop the power run, and they're not as good in their secondary in the sense that they'll give up some big plays. I think Green Bay's going to test them big plays and say, you're not going to bring that safety down in the box. We're going to power run the game at you all game long. I think it's going to be a long day for Seattle.
I like it. Give me your Philly Dallas thoughts here. What's the pick there?
People keep thinking I'm going to go back to Dallas because I rode that bandwagon last year, but I think Philly's going to play pace football, and I think Dallas is not in a position to play pace football. And Philadelphia, I think they're going to see the second half Eagles again what they were against the Falcons. I think we're going to see that for 4 quarters this week, and I think they're going to get a big win, but I wouldn't be surprised to see 34-24 win.
All right, a lot of people lining that Eagle way. A lot of banged up Cowboys over there. No Dez, Hardy out too. Keep that in mind. McLean out. Not a lot of people talk about McLean being out as much. Gregory too. So a lot. It's Skandrick we know for the year. So a lot of guys banged up on that Dow side. Casey Joyner, everybody here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN over at ESPN.com at Casey Joyner TFS on Twitter for more on the NFL. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it.